You're listening to
They're going to call it a hard foul. They're going to call it a hard
foul. All right, we're back with another episode of the Chronicles of Hope, breaking down Brad Stevens' intuition. I'm Moon Unit Bugsby, as always, straight and formally from the White House. Big Balls McGee. Big Balls, how was your time at Doge?
What the fuck am I?
I'm just kidding. This is Hot Foul and Quigley, as always, with my brother
Respond
Mike.
to that.
And we are brought to you by the what?
The Fan First Sports Network, bitch. What was that?
Oh God!
I don't even follow. What am I missing out on here?
So you never heard of Big Balls over at the White House? Running
No.
22-year-old running like everything for Doge for Elon Musk. Well, he left today.
Why'd he leave? What happened?
He took steroids. His balls shrunk. Out he went. So Mike, couple huge moves. Why don't you kick us off? Tell the folks about it, what they already know, and what you think.
Man. Oh, Celtics had a busy day and the team got a lot worse, but they got under the apron, so that was the goal, right? Brad Stevens was put into a tough spot. He had to move these guys, and everything we heard was he'd have to like attach picks to them or whatever, and all the rumors we heard weren't even close to what actually happened. So I don't think anybody saw Jrue Holiday going to the Portland Trail Blazers, and
No, not at all. Yeah.
there's already a report out that he's not happy about that. So I think he might be getting moved or demanding that he be moved. But obviously, he brought back a 20-point scorer in Simons. And we'll see what happens with that contract, if he's even going to be here or not. And then the Kristaps Porzingis trade was a salary dump. And my reaction to that is Atlanta got a good player if he's healthy, and I wish that the Celtics were a little bit more patient. I wish they waited till the trade deadline to see if they could have got more value for him, because they got absolutely nothing. And so that puts them under the apron, and they can aggregate trades now. So be interested to see if they take Hauser and Yang and move them together for something, or what they end up doing. I'm sure there's more moves to come, but certainly not as interesting as a team as they were last year, and not as good, but we all expected this to happen.
No, it's just set the table for this. I think they're not as good. You got to start there. They're down three starters, right? Now from the championship team, Porzingis is gone, Tatum is hurt, and Holiday's out. So that's three. And of their top six, Horford's a free agent. So you start right there, as this team is going to be dramatically different to start the season. They're probably in a bad East, somewhere between a 5 and 8 seed, as of today, I would think, somewhere in that ballpark, maybe a little bit better, but not much. And they had a mission, like they had to get below the second apron. Obviously, I think, these two moves saved them like $180 million when you talk about what the tax is. So that's a huge expense, but bigger than that is obviously the basketball penalties. You're out from under. You bring in, as you say, two expiring contracts. I think the thing that surprised most people, not so much me, and I was saying this for a little bit, but they didn't have to send any currency going out. So there was no expense to get rid of Porzingis. There was no expense to get rid of Holiday. You got worse. I don't think there's any doubt. Yang's not as good as Porzingis. Simons is not as good as Holiday. Simons in some ways might help you get through a regular season better than Holiday would, but when it's not crunching time, I think that's pretty obvious who you want on your side out of those two guys.
Yeah, I don't know much about the kid. I mean, he's 26 years old. He's been playing in Portland his whole career. I think there's a reason they traded him.
Really good offensive player, 39% from three, 20-point a game shooter. Yang's a 39% three-point shooter. The pride of Lawerence, Massachusetts, coming on back home, which is whatever. But I think he raised a question, what happens next? And they are, as of now, 4 million below the second apron. They're going to be below the second apron when all said is done. If you add in their draft picks, you add in two minimum salaries, they go 2 million or 4 million above that second apron. But they will be below that. I think at this point it's just arithmetic. They're going to be below the second apron. They may go over it for a minute. They may go back below, and you might see a little seesaw there, but they'll be below it. Um, they're 50 million above the first apron, and that's kind of the interesting one, right? What do they do? Are they going to try to build a team for next year and not worry about that first apron? Are they going to lean in with Anthony Simon and be a really good offensive team? Maybe they surround Brown with a bunch of offensive players and say, this is a 1 year transition. Let's, lean into one side of the ball. Let's lean into offense and have some fun here. Which I'm not totally against, for 1 year. Or is this a rebuild where there could be some bigger moves to come, you know?
Oh.
And it also, Mike, if the first apron is the goal, it gets a lot easier to get below it now. We were talking, you had to trade Hauser to get below that first apron. You don't anymore. You could lose some trade of Niang and Simon, and you can get below there pretty easily. So there's ways, if that's their kind of goal, it gets easier. If they're looking to build to stay above below the second apron, but be competitive for one season and transition into this thing, that gets easier. So
maybe they,
it's interesting.
or maybe they take Hauser, Niang, and Simon, and they put them all in a package together to trade for a guy with the same salary that's really good.
Yeah.
They have more options now that they're under that second apron.
Yep.
Which, I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to, seeing what's out there, but it's tough. I mean, the Tatum injury changed everything. If Tatum didn't get injured in Game 4, I don't know if this is what the offseason looks like right now. It would really test ownership. I think ownership got an out with this injury that they could cut salary. So we'll never really know, not for a while, anyways. But yeah, they're not.
Yeah, look, I see a Tatum point.
One thing they did need to do is get faster on offense.
They need to get younger and faster. Yeah.
And they did, and Brad was able to accomplish that. And I mean, I last season when they won the championship, Holiday was awesome, especially against Indiana and Dallas. And quite frankly, when Donovan Mitchell was healthy in the Cavs series, he was pretty good.
He was great throughout.
Yeah, and the second, I think they lost Game 1 against Cleveland, won Game 2, and it was Holiday really covering Mitchell in that second game. Last season he wasn't that good. I mean, you can point out end of game situations where he quite frankly lost some games with some terrible decisions. And then the playoffs, he certainly didn't look himself.
Yeah,
Well, they might have got out of a bad contract. I mean, they're paying this guy $39 million 3 years from now. And if this kid's any good, I mean, who's to say it's not like an Isaiah Thomas situation? You got a really talented player coming off your bench. You don't know. So, I mean, I don't know what people expected for a return for Holiday. I never really expected much.
It was more than I expected.
Yeah, this is definitely more than I expected. The KP
Can I go back to a point though that you made where I just don't want it to get lost, and I want to make a Holiday point too. Yeah, and Tatum, if they're not hurt with the way the East is set up right now, you can make a real legitimate argument of if you're going into the season with Tatum, White, and Brown, with the way the East is now, and Halliburton going down with that awful injury, they might be the favorites to get out of the East right now, even with these moves, and you would bolster the lineup with moves to come. I mean, that's how big that injury is right now. You could have possibly gotten back to the NBA Finals, even taken a step back next year. You would at least have a shot. You would definitely have a shot. The other component to this and the Holiday stuff, I agree with your age and the contract. I'll just say this about last season. Before he hurt his mallet finger, he was really getting going at the end of the regular season. Then he missed a bunch. Took a little while. That first round, he was really, really goddamn good before he hurt his hamstring. And I know these injuries have to do with age too, so they're all one and the same. But I just went back and watched a little bit of the stretch at the end of the season where this team really got going and Porzingis was going, and even with Brown hobbled, man, you just wondered if Holiday and Porzingis could have stayed healthy, what this run could have looked like. But obviously
Well, they
that
would have
wasn't the
made the
case.
finals.
Yeah, they would have. I think
Yeah.
so if those guys stayed healthy.
I mean,
And Brown, you go back and you watch what he did a season ago. He was not nearly the guy he was either. So,
there's still no excuse for blowing those 2 games at home.
oh, but beyond, yeah, sure. But I don't think they're getting by Indiana with the way they look. But, yeah, they should have got by the Knicks. Yeah. Um, but I kind of interrupted your point you were going to make about Simons.
Oh, I forget what the point was, other than at this point, like, I mean, we've got a history, at least a recent history, where they brought in a guy that was a high volume scorer that didn't work out on like bad teams, and um, maybe he comes here and we get something out of him. The the other part of it that concerns me, unless they move him, is it sounds like he had some locker room issues with Chauncey Billups as the coach, and there were 3 other young guards on this team that were younger than him that weren't included in this trade. So
Right.
it does sound like the Trailblazers were eager to unload this and get rid of him, despite him scoring 20 points a game. So I usually look at that. Maybe there's probably some definite red flags there other than just bad defense. Maybe this guy's got a little bit of an attitude problem.
That's why I'm wondering if this is, if they keep him, if this is just going to be an offensive centered team. You go out there, Brown, White. I know they're both good defenders, but Pritchard, Simons, maybe they bring on a player or two more, and you just kind of going down the court and you're winning games 120 to 115, or losing games 120 to 115. I wonder if that's the style they're gonna kind of approach, and maybe you get the best out of Simons, and at the trade deadline you can move him then. Or you just let him walk or resign him at the end of the year. What is your, if you were gonna bet and the over under was a half game, would you which way would you lean in terms of him playing a half over under a half game of him playing for the Celtics next year?
Over under half a game.
Yeah.
So being their opening night and playing. Um, I think that I don't know if it makes sense to trade him right now. I think that his value would be more as an expiring contract with less money to trade away at the trade deadline. I think he's going to be here because if he comes here and plays well, you may be able to move him for something at the trade deadline if you want to. So I don't see what the hurry is. Unless I'm aggregating him in a trade to get a better player, what's the point? Unless they want to get under the first apron.
Yeah, if they want to get under the first apron, I'm making the bet on the under, and I think they try to keep Hauser because I'm just trying to think what's the best team with Jason Tatum. And I think the best team is with Jason Tatum is you're better off with Sam Hauser than you are with Anthony Simons.
I can't say that because I got to watch Simons play, but I mean, this guy's scoring 20 points a game. I
Yeah,
I would
but he's
imagine
not a
he's
two-way
probably a
player. Yeah,
better player than Sam Hauser. And
but
Sam
Simons is
Hauser's
the
got a
type of
bad
guy.
back.
Simons is the type of guy that needs a ball in his hand a lot to be successful. He's not a great defender. He does better out of the pick and roll. I feel like Hauser is more of a two-way guy that can kind of go off in the corner and let Tatum cook and
I
be
don't know. I feel
a
like
good
the
player.
NBA's kind of figured Hauser out. I don't know how much of a two-way guy he is anymore.
I think injury had a lot to do with it last year.
Yeah, back
Yeah.
injuries don't go away.
It can get better. Look, I mean, he was fantastic 2 seasons ago. He was a big reason he held his own against Kyrie and Luka in the finals. He hit some really big shots. He was great all season long. Um, you know, he was down this year. I don't love selling on a guy when they're down. And I think just to me, you disagree, but to me, I think he's a better fit going forward with Tatum.
Yeah, I think they got to speed up their pace of play. And I want to see this kid play. I don't know if he needs the ball in his hands and needs to pick and roll. I've only seen him play against the Celtics because the Trailblazers are never on TV. and he dropped 40 points in a game twice last year.
Yeah.
So I'd like to see the kid play, and then I'll decide whether if he's good with Tatum or not. But I would hate that they're making decisions to get under the first apron, because then typically doesn't that mean that they're going to want to be under the first apron again next season?
I think I think that chances
So
of that
that
would
would
be
be
high.
horrible.
I think the chances of that would be high.
Yeah. So if
Yeah.
that's the goal, then I'm going to be pissed at ownership.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got enough of that fucking shit going on in this city. The Red Sox don't want to spend money. The Patriots hide their books. What, the Celtics are going to be like this now? Come on. Somebody be interested in fucking spending money and winning around here?
I don't think these trades let you know which way they're going right now. It really could go either way. Like you said, you could aggregate trades and make this team
Good
a little
now.
bit better now going forward.
You could.
You're going to have to cut some more salary just so you stay away from that second apron. But we're talking, 5 million, it's 5 to 8 million, somewhere in that ballpark. Where it keeps you safe.
Well, let me make another Hauser point, though. If you do move that 10 million, doesn't that really up your chances of bringing Luke Cornett back?
I'd see. I think Luke's going to be offered the full mid level, so it'd be a matter of whether he wants to come here or not for less. I mean, you would have to
What's
get
the full
another.
mid level? How much is it?
I think it's like somewhere between 10 and 13 million. And
Because I mean, if you moved Hauser, you could offer Luke Cornett the 4-year, $40 million contract.
you could,
I
yeah, if you got below that first apron, then you would have access to the full mid level taxpayer exemption.
But where he's a player on your team already, can't you offer him whatever you want?
No, so it's only a percentage more than what they were making. So that's how bird rights work. I forget how much the percentage. So he made the minimum, so it's not that much more you would actually be able to offer him for.
So they would have to get under. So they would have to trade Hauser first, get under the first apron, then sign.
Unless he
Wow,
wants to come here for a little bit less. Because you can pay him the taxpayer mid-level exemption.
he's got to get paid.
Yeah. So that would be a Luke Cornett decision. The same goes for Al Horford for a season or two. What, I think these moves, what it does do, it doesn't necessarily mean they're both out the door.
Is it crazy that I kind of want to let Al walk and see the Celtics get younger at that position?
I don't think it's crazy. No, I don't think it's crazy. And you got to wonder, like, what is he going to look like next season? Not this season upcoming, but the
One
following
after.
season when Tatum's back. Yeah. So I don't look. I think a great fit. I was thinking about it earlier for Al would be Oklahoma City.
Yeah, definitely would be a great fit there. Be a
Yeah.
great fit. Be a great fit in a lot of teams.
We're on a lot of teams. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's that type of guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where he played there before, the experience was so good. They know him. They know how to use him. It would be really good, I think.
No one's going to be a good team if they're healthy, but it's a big if. The Atlanta Hawks.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a good move for them. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good move for them.
I have a feeling there's a former Hawk center that might be playing for Boston if we aren't able to re-sign any of our centers, and it's going to drive you crazy.
Who's that?
I don't feel like Clint Capella is going to get anything more than like a minimum contract.
Yeah, first season, I'd be okay. That's
Yeah,
fine.
they're going to
First
need
season,
more bodies,
yeah,
right?
they're gonna need bodies. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, even like Niang for a season,
Oh,
it's fine.
God, I'm not going to be able to watch him play. Oh, he is awful, Jimmy.
The minivan.
He's awful. God, he's so bad.
He averaged 10 points a game last year,
Good
and
for
shot
good for
40%
him.
for three.
Yeah, well, let's play Baylor Shireman instead. And
Well, they're two different positions.
Niang can be a cheerleader.
Niang's a power forward. The other room is out today, so we'll start chronological order where they came out. Shams, I don't think there's anything new here. I almost feel like he says this for clicks at this point, but he mentioned again their teams are making huge
Calls
offers
for White and
for
Brown.
Brown and White. And the only reason I give it any credence at this moment at all, he didn't kill it up from the Celtics side when he reported it. He said they'd rather not. And then Brian Robb this morning was asked on
Mhm.
the Sports Hub, what he thought the chances of Brown and White getting traded. He gave it a 4 out of 10,
Pretty
4 or 5 out of 10, which was I thought was high. And that surprised me.
I mean, you have to consider it when you look at next year's draft, and they're saying the top three picks could all be number one pick talent. Um, I'm sure. I know they say this year's draft is really good, but it's not. It's not good with that up like that front end talent. It's good with like a bunch of guys that can last like 10 to 13 years in the league. Next year's draft, they're saying the first three picks are all like that Cooper Flag type.
Yeah,
Maybe not as good as Cooper Flag, but like it's that kind of player. So, you know, you don't know where Brad's head is at when it comes to Jaylen Brown being older, and can I replace him now? And it's definitely possible. Somebody's offering you 6 first round picks, and you can tank and try to get in that lottery. Um, I don't take anything off the table.
the other rumor, speaking of lottery, and this came from Steve Bulpett. That's why I give it some legs
But
because
how do they get up into it? How do they trade up into it? What do they have?
well, the lottery remember goes to the 14th pick. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know where this kid is. I haven't. I just saw this, so I don't know where this kid is slotted. If you want to look it up, but Kasparis Jukanis, the Illinois guard,
Yeah.
the Celtics are rumored to be looking to get into the lottery for that. I don't know what it would take to get there. I mean, if we're talking somewhere between 10 and 14, maybe not as much as we think. Um, especially if the Celtics trading a future first or something like that. But I don't know. I don't know anything about him as a player.
Yeah.
I am not a draft head. I'm gonna go listen to somebody about it later on, but that's the other rumor. So it does sound like, you know, there's a good chance that either tomorrow night or before tomorrow, there are some more Celtics moves that.
I think it's going to be hard for the Celtics to move up when you got the Brooklyn Nets got 5 first round picks. They got a ton of ammunition to move up. The
That's
Oklahoma City
incredible, isn't it?
Thunder, yeah, the Oklahoma City Thunder already say they want to move up into the lottery.
And
They have way more
they
ammo
have
than
plenty
we do.
of.
Yeah. So we'll see if the Celtics are able to. I don't know. I mean, if OKC's throwing like 3 first round picks at somebody,
Yeah.
you know, so
I guess it depends on who these teams want, and there's a lot of
and not
small.
only that, OKC has lottery picks on their bench that didn't even see the floor this year. They got so much they can trade.
Yeah, no, they're loaded with picks. I'm trying to figure out when this kid is slotted in a mock here, an ESPN's mock. Some to pick 9, and his name isn't up yet. Oh, so they're saying 11 to Portland. And so I guess he's slotted somewhere 10 to 14.
We love
would be
trade.
my
We love
guess.
trading with the Trailblazers. You know, I saw a mock draft where the Celtics are drafting that 7 footer out of Creighton.
I've seen a couple of those, yeah.
Yeah,
With
he was
him,
good.
yeah.
At least he looked good. I don't know.
Older guy, 22, 23. I don't know much more about him. Um, so what do you think, Mike, before we move on to other moves? What's your prediction? What do you
Of what?
what would you like to see happen next? What do you think might happen next? Um,
I would like to see them continue to try to compete. I
yeah,
would like to see them, they can stay under the second apron and maybe combine some of these contracts and a future 1st round pick to maybe bring in somebody that'll be here for 2 or 3 years. That's a good player that makes, 30 something million a year. But I doubt that's going to happen. What I think is going to happen, I think they're going to try to shred some more salary to bring back either Horford or Cornette. And next year's team's going to look a lot different. It's going to have some young guys that hopefully they draft and are good. It'll have some, maybe some new faces like undrafted free agents and things like that. And we'll just have to enjoy watching Jaylen Brown and Derek White and Pritchard do their thing. And hopefully 2 years from now, they're really good again.
yeah. So I'm hoping about the same thing. I want them to accomplish two things. One, I want a fun team next year. I don't have high expectations. Like I don't expect any for Eastern Conference appearance, but I would love a season. I'd love a season where they're competitive, a playoff team. I'd like a team that gets up and down. I guess the other option is a team that digs in defensively. For a lost season, I mean, whatever on that. I give me up and down basketball, exciting, get after it, just run, run, run. Build a team that way. The other thing I'd like to do is have them where they can complement, have players that complement Brown and Tatum.
Yeah.
Luke Cornett's a perfect example of that. So if they can trade Niang and maybe someone else, get below that first apron, or maybe Cornette gives him the hometown discount. I don't know. Like he's a perfect guy to bring back. He really complements Tatum and Brown very very nicely. He's a perfect guy for them. Um, another guy, I don't know if they'll be able to keep him, but I do think Hauser is a good fit. I think having a move shooter with those guys is really good to have. I think he helps those guys out when he's healthy. So that's what I'd like to see them do. And that's a hard thing to do, I know. But what Brad put himself in position with these two trades is it leaves that open. I think the latter point of getting players that complement Tatum and Brown is more important than the former of having a fun team. But I think he can do both, and that's what I'm hoping for. This is going to be a middle of the pack team. I know folks are looking at this as the Eastern Conference being down, and you can still go out there and do it. And if Tatum comes back, I'm really hoping Tatum doesn't come back because that's just going to give me heartburn every time he's out there next year, trying to rush this together.
I know.
Like
I hear you.
that's just going to give me heartburn. Um, and I'm not dismissing that not being true, that it is weak and you can compete. But I think the most likely scenario is you're just not going to be good enough. And so make it fun. Let's see Brown as the number one guy and see how it looks. It could be interesting. Like to me, that could be interesting.
And
Uh,
I would take an opportunity here too to like take a look at guys around the league who you've identified that had talent, that maybe they already did this with Simons, that aren't working out on the teams they're on, or they're in free agency right now and you can get them really cheap, and stop bringing those guys in now and seeing if they're going to work out. Like you can test the waters with a lot of different things next year, with different guys coming in here. I know Washington has a center who's a free agent who shot like 47% from three. I think his last name is Vucevic, who's a second round pick. I don't know if he's restricted or not, but that's like the type of guy I'd be looking at. Like 7 feet tall, 220. See if you bring him in here and get him in your system, like those type of guys, and maybe you find your next Luke Cornett or
right.
your next Sam Hauser. I think they got to be very. There's an opportunity here to just be really creative with the roster. They don't have to build a roster this year around anything. They could build a roster that to be fun to watch and to test guys out.
Well, I do think they should build it somewhat to be an up and down team. I mean, that's where Brown plays his best basketball. There's no one better at transition in the NBA and finishing than Brown. And I like compliment him. If you're going to keep him and allow him to be you know, a number one guy for the first time in his career, then give him every opportunity to have the highest ceiling to succeed. I actually think that's really important for the future of this franchise. If like he builds that confidence that he is actually that guy too, then you got something. So like I think those things are important. If they do decide to trade Brown, my criteria, and I'm at the point, Mike, where I don't want them to do it anymore. I know, I talked about in previous pods, maybe it was the best move. I'm more interested to see how this looks. But my criteria would be you need a guy that is, either you project and with high certainty that he's going to be an all NBA or high caliber all star player, or he's on the verge. And then you need another young guy in there that's a good player, and maybe some draft picks. Definitely some draft picks sprinkled in. Like it has to be a Godfather move. With like, even if people don't like it, you still say, well, goddamn, it's still a lot. Like I don't want Brown to leave, but I can understand why. That's what it has. Like anything less than that, I'm hanging up the phone on people.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I mean, You don't want to do it like the Utah Jazz did and unload your two all-stars and all you got back with draft picks.
Right? No, you can't do that.
No, and I mean you got Laurie Markkinen and Walker Kessler, but neither one of them are touching Donovan Mitchell or
It's not
Rudy
good enough.
Gobert.
No, it's
Not
not
even
good enough.
close. And your draft picks that you got are all late round picks.
Yeah.
So they don't even have value. Yeah, trading Brown would be very difficult to get the value back. So
Yeah, no, it'd have to be a Godfather offer, and then and White, not quite that, but it would need to be goddamn close to. I think I would want
best
a hell of a
contract in
lot
the
for him.
NBA.
Huh?
Derek White has the probably best contract in the NBA.
Yeah, no, he really does, and like his value in the, he's a late bloomer, so he doesn't have as much wear and tear on his ties at all as guys typically his age. So it would be the same type of thing. I tend to think neither one of those guys are going. I like one of the thing about the Porzingis trade that we didn't touch on. I think is the most surprising. We did touch on it, but to me, it's the most surprising is how much money they got off of the Porzingis trade. I mean, we're talking they're only taking in $9 million.
Yeah,
They got off 21 million. I mean, that just changes how you can operate now
the
completely.
Atlanta Hawks went and got their center. They needed one forever, and they're taking a risk. They're going all in with Porzingis. So
Do it. I would too if I was them.
I would too.
And
Yeah,
this is where I think like pundits, like whomever, you and me, whatever, separate from GMs. Is GMs see things much differently than, oh, this guy doesn't have value anymore. Well, they might have value to that team and
Yeah.
like what they want to do,
I
so
mean, imagine Trae Young throwing alley oops to a healthy KP.
or just the way if he's out, as we've seen, 30 feet behind the
That
3-point
too.
line with Young having the ball in that much space now. I mean, come on,
Yeah.
Mike, you want to touch on Durant?
Yeah. I'm going against the grain here. I don't think this is a great trade for Houston. I gotta be honest.
Really?
I think you gave up your number 10 pick, which is going to be a good pick. You gave up Jalen Green, who's 22 years old,
Yeah,
and you gave up Dylan Brooks, and you're bringing in a guy who plays. When things don't go his way, he's not necessarily locked in. He's not afraid to tell the fans how much he hates them. He's probably the most miserable superstar in the history of sports, who's more interested sometimes in Twitter than I don't know. He's an aging superstar, and if he gets hurt, your team has very little guys who can go get a bucket on their own. Where I just think you gave up on Jalen Green way too quick. I think like you should have waited to go get your superstar. Kevin Durant wasn't the guy. Now, luckily, they didn't have to throw a lot of their draft picks in, and they get a lot of chips still to play with.
They
But
could make another move. Yeah.
Phoenix is already looking to move Jalen Green, so maybe that says something more about Green
Yeah, I
than
think
what
it
I'm
does.
seeing.
Yeah.
But
I think there's a low ceiling on Green.
yeah, I guess so. We'll see. We'll see how it works out in Houston with Kevin Durant. We'll see. Yeah,
I
I
think
don't love it. I don't love the. I
I
don't
think
love
what
it.
Houston is probably thinking is you got an emerging superstar, I think, in Amen Thompson, that is, took huge steps last year. Now his splits suck. If you look at his shooting splits, they're terrible. But you can just see like
Talent's there.
when you watch him play, like it would not shock you if he's a much better shooter next year. I don't think it would shock anyone. It doesn't feel like it's unfixable. This isn't a Ben Simmons situation at all with him. Incredible defensive player. And I think there's a lot of growth offensively. But what they don't have, and they didn't have, was a guy that was a bucket. And
Now they do.
now they do. And he's by far and away the best offensive player. He would have been by far and away the best offensive player last year. When it was nut crunching time, they didn't really have anywhere to go. They would force it into Sagoon, and it just, sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. No one creates space better, even at his age, than Kevin Durant. And,
Well, SGA
he doesn't
does.
have to play 82 games for Houston
No.
next year.
He better not. They should play him like 40 games if they're smart.
I
Because
bet
they'll
you
win
plays
enough games
somewhere
without
between
him
50 and
let him
60.
go all out in the
Yeah.
playoffs. Yeah. Yeah, we'll see if it works out. Durant was okay last year. His numbers were good, but he wasn't the same player.
I do wonder. I'd love to know if they called on Brown before this, or if Durant's just an Ime guy, and this is who they wanted, and they could get him for less, and they knew that, and this is the direction
They
they
bring
would
in
go.
Russell Westbrook too.
I haven't seen that.
Isn't there a rumor that they're looking to sign him?
I haven't seen that.
Let me see
Maybe.
here.
Yeah,
I could have sworn I saw something about Russell Westbrook going back there.
that would be a bad move for that
Do you
team.
think?
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll tell you one last thing, Mike. If Denver was a serious about like getting better, making another step with Jokic, and I know the contract sucks, but I would have made at least some effort if I was them to try to trade for Jrue Holiday as a guy that
He would have been a perfect fit.
would have been a perfect fit. Would have been a perfect fit there. Um, yeah. Anything you want to end this for? Kyrie was just extended, so I'm so sorry, Cooper Flag, for your future.
188 million to Kyrie.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
After that
Cooper.
injury too.
Yeah, he's
That's
gonna
weird.
ice you out. He's gonna ice you out, Cooper. What matters most.
Yeah, I mean the Wizards made the trade. Jordan Poole got moved in the most weirdest trade I've ever seen in my life.
I didn't understand that. No.
I mean, if you're the
The other,
Pelicans, I guess
yep.
you're just desperate if you're the Pelicans to have guys who actually dress up and play. So
Yeah,
like,
well, that could be
Jordan
it.
Poole plays 80 games a year. Well, bring him in.
Yeah.
You know?
The other thing Bull Pep reported too is that Holiday is pissed.
Yeah, that's what I saw.
Portland. Yeah.
I'd be pissed too.
Yep.
I mean, how pissed can you be though? I mean, you're being paid 30 something million a year. Like, it'd be all right.
Well, today I would just conclude as a huge day. You know, you had the pride of Lawerence, Mass coming back to Boston. In the same trade, you had a guy from Lowell being traded as well. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of Massachusetts going on there.
Well, the Merrimack Valley, man.
Merrimack
Noah
Valley,
Vonleh.
baby. Right up there in the Merrimack Valley.
should
All we
bring
need is a
back-
guy from your town in Haverhill.
They should bring back Noah Vonleh. It's from Haverhill.
That's right. That's right. He's probably
Yeah.
in Brazil or something playing there. Yeah, so Pride of Lawrence, Mass. Brad Stevens makes moves you don't expect, as always. And no currency going up, despite what all the pundits said.
What year
was
were
gonna
these
happen.
draft picks that they got? Do we know? They like in the
I don't know.
2030s, or can they?
Yeah, something like that. They're just
I don't
second
know,
round
like
picks, you know.
50 years from now.
Yeah, I mean, the key is, to me, like you saw the predictions that they were going to have to send out a first. That didn't happen. So they're well stocked to do whatever they want here now.
Yeah. Tomorrow night will be an interesting night. Tomorrow
It
night's
really will.
draft.
Tomorrow, the whole day. I mean, I think they're very well could make a
tomorrow.
move before the draft tomorrow.
Yeah, there'll be a ton of trades coming
Yep.
up soon. A lot of teams are going to be moving pieces. Oh, we didn't even talk about the NBA Finals. Do you think the Pacers have a different outcome if Halliburton doesn't get hurt?
Yeah, I do. I don't know if they would have
hit
won,
three
but it would have been
three-pointers.
close. It would have been close.
He looked locked in.
He looked great. I mean, he
Yeah.
looked like he was going to have one of those games. And the thing with the Pacers, when he gets going like that and he starts hitting shots, it feels like none of them can miss after a while.
Yeah.
It really becomes contagious. And then the turnovers just started happening. Once they lost his ball handling and his leadership, it sunk them. And that was too tough to overcome on the road. Obviously.
Yeah, that OKC defense is. Ooh,
That trade for Caruso, man, does
what a
that,
trade.
Giddy could not have done that. I mean, that is pretty obvious. He was awesome. Dort was awesome. SGA was fantastic for a game 7. Just all the way around. Holmgren, I thought he played his best game of the playoffs.
Yeah, sure did.
So the upside for them, is now. And let's
Yeah, I
see.
mean,
It's gonna be interesting to see what they do to tinker with their team.
SGA was the scoring champion, the regular season MVP, and the finals MVP. He's one of like only 5 players in NBA history to do that.
Yeah,
That's an incredible season.
it really is.
Yeah.
Really is. And they're the favorites now, and the favorites out east, I guess it's probably the Knicks, but It's pretty wide open.
The Knicks. Yeah, all right. That'll be the day.
Yep.
It's the Philadelphia 76ers. They got the second pick, and Embiid's going to be healthy. You follow them on Twitter, all their fans?
Paul George is rumored to go to Utah.
As like a salary dump? Is that what it is?
I don't know. You know, I don't know what that would be.
That'd be a good move for Philly.
Yeah, if they can get help from that. Yes. Yes.
Who cares what you get back, you know? Colin
I
Sexton.
mean, it'd be interesting. Like, do they try to go? I think they're gonna try to go after it this season. I think that's a mistake. I think they're toast. Embiid looks toast to me. It looks like his best miles are way in the past.
They're stuck with him, though.
Yeah.
They're stuck with him. Yeah. All right. Well, big day tomorrow, Jim. We'll catch up on another pod.
All right. Talk to everyone soon.
All right.